I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and you're listening to Live Without Limits Dreams Come True with the Right Mindset. Today's presentation is titled 10 Ways That You Can Improve Your Memory, Recall, and Age Gracefully. Now, one of the reasons I want to talk about this is that the largest age group is well, my head's not working, but the largest age group are those that were post World War II babies, known as, well, that's when my head's not working. But many of them are now up there in their late 60s, 70s, even early 80s. And for a lot of reasons that you're seeing a lot more people with Alzheimer's today. And so a lot of what it is you remember in Alabama, you had Bear Bryant, and he worked as a coach until he was into his 70s. And then upon retiring within a couple of years, he passed away. That for many of us, if we don't are not active or we stop being active, then we don't know what to do with ourselves. And because of that, what happens? You let things go, your memory starts lapsing, but also it is related to a lot of things within the brain. And we don't even recognize or realize just how important brain function is to how we deal with things on a daily basis. And the what I'm talking about is that they are known as the baby boomer generation. And why are they known as the baby boomer generation? Because after World War II, when the men started coming home, all of a sudden there was a boom of babies. And then all the other generations beyond that, Generation X, Generation Y, Millennials, and Generation Z. So when you look at each generation, remember that it's the number of people that were born during that era. The baby boomer generation spans from 1945 to 1964. And many of them went into the workforce just after their parents, because many of their parents came from Europe. So they were usually either the first or second generation born in the United States. And before I get off track, let's get back onto what we were talking about. And that is the 10 ways that you can improve your memory recall and age gracefully. The worst, when you forget where you put your keys, no matter how hard you try to will your brain to remember, you can't. And what just happened earlier, just prior to this, that is a good example of how the brain forgets, because I always talk about the baby boomer generation, the Generation X, Generation Y, the millennials, and Generation Z. And yet I couldn't remember the baby boomer generation off the top of my head. So that's a good example of just how the memory can lapse at times. So no matter how hard you try to will your brain to remember, you can't. Maybe you walk aimlessly through your house hunting for some kind of clue. Well, there's good news here. Memory recall can be prompted by cues. This is why all of a sudden, when sharing or staring at your purse, you might remember sliding them into that side pocket that you never used. Voila, keys. Inevitably, this will happen to all of us at some time or another. We struggle to remember someone's name or whether we turn left or turn right at the next intersection. And this is a memory recall problem. It doesn't mean that the memories don't exist. More so, the mental process to retrieve them is failing you. Unfortunately, these memory slips tend to happen more frequently as we age. The inevitable wear and tear begin to occur as time goes on. However, this doesn't have to be your fate. In fact, you can improve your memory recall. And so in this presentation, we're going to examine exactly how you can do that. So can memory ability be improved? The University of California, Berkeley states the challenge with storage is that once something has made it into long-term memory, it tends to remain stored, but not necessarily always accessible. In other words, you have the capability to create new memories galore, but it's the ability to access those memories that tend to fade as time goes on. Luckily, this can be improved. More specifically, experts claim that by practicing the act of retrieval, that is, remembering your stored memories and bringing them to the conscious mind, you will be able to readily access these information later on. As always, practice makes perfect. So, what foods improve memory? There are specific types of food that contribute to good brain health and optimal memory recall. For instance, many brain foods contain omega 3 fatty acids and antioxidants, which contribute to neural and brain cell repair and function. We'll dive into that more specific foods below later on. So, how to improve your memory recall? So, how can you get better at remembering things? Here are a few tips to improve your memory recall and age gracefully. Watch your diet. You literally become what you eat. And I don't mean you're able to transform into that delicious chocolate bar or steak. Rather, your body can only do so much with the tools that you give it. In other words, if you're giving your body not so great tools, oh hey, high calorie, low nutrient junk foods, then you're not going to get as much out of it as you could. Ensuring that you eat a whole foods diet is important for not just your brain health, but your overall health. When specifically talking about memory recall and brain health, some great foods to eat are salmon, tuna, sardines, berries, dark leafy greens, and walnuts. Now, one of the things I can tell you is I can't say I always eat healthy, but I always make sure to have salads. I make sure that I have, like, I will get salmon steak, tuna steak, and I will even get Alaskan cod But the idea being is when I put that in, usually I have green vegetables that I put in there and add things to it. And then I know that potatoes are a starch, but if you eat it within moderation, there's no reason why it can't help you. And always remember, you need to be aware that you either have to have fish or chicken. Yes, red meat is good for you, but it's also harder to digest. Therefore, it's important to eat it within moderation. Two, practice. Rehearsal can do wonders for recalling information, such as info or facts that you want to remember for that next big exam. A really good way to do this is to study the basic concept of something, then study the elaborated explanation and repeat. Do focused work. Surprisingly, attention is a key part of having a great memory recall. You need proper attention to be able to retrieve your memories from long term memory and bring them into conscious thought. Then studying or trying to remember something, thus reducing distractions is of the utmost importance. Decrease stress. Stress and memories have a very negative effect. Stress not only impacts what type of memories we create, but also makes it difficult to accurately recall the information later. Plus, when you remember something, you actually slightly alter that memory. If you are under stress, you might paint the memory a little differently, influencing the accuracy later on. On top of this, stress takes away from our attention, leading to difficulty with even trying to remember something specific. In fact, trying to remember and not remembering might just pile on more stress. Thus, first, it's better to find for a way to calm your nerves and then dive back in. Try using mnemonic devices. Mnemonic devices simply means that attaching a memory or a fact that you need to remember to a particular object or scene. In fact, there are various ways to do this. You can use songs and rhymes or acronyms. You might also opt for visualizing yourself going through a room that's familiar to you and attaching meaning to obtain, or rather to certain objects, to remember a particular concept. Find a way that works for you. Visualization. Actually, visualizing is a concept or memory that can solidify it, making it easier to pull up later on. This is particularly why flashcards work as well. They provide visual cues or using pictures or illustrations that can help you learn and remember a concept. Read out loud. Research shows that memory recall can be enhanced by reading out loud. In fact, many experts and teachers have noticed that when you try to explain or teach a concept or memory to someone else, you're benefiting yourself also. You'll be much more equipped to remember and understand it later. Prioritize your sleep. While Cramming all night for that exam might seem like a great idea, and sure, when we're in our teens and 20s, we can totally get away with a night of missed sleep now and then. It actually could be doing more harm than good. A lack of sleep is linked to various cognitive deficits, including memory and attention. The fix? Get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, especially if you have a big exam or event where you'll need your memory and brain power to perform in tip top shape. Exercise regularly. Yes, exercise can help improve your cognitive health just as much as it improves your physical health. Aim to get at least 150 minutes a week or about 20 minutes a day. And this doesn't need to be anything super strenuous, but try going for a few short walks. And before you know it, you'll be meeting your quota. Play memory recall games. There are so going to bother listing them all off. But to name a few, there are Sudoku, crosswords, puzzles, trivia, and others. So, how can you sharpen your brain and improve your memory recall? Try incorporating the tips above and get a leg up on your memory recall. It's never too early or too late to get practicing and start working that good old noggin. Plus, your future self might just think, thank you, when you can easily recall where you put your keys or what your best friend's phone number is. Seriously, if your phone dies, would you be able to call anyone from a store phone or a phone booth? So make these changes and watch your life and cognitive function vastly improve. Now, in the classroom, often they have to teach in a cookie cutter method because even though we all learn differently, or the fact that it, for some people, what gets into short-term memory doesn't always translate into long-term memory, then what happens? You're creating a situation where you're trying to recall things, but may not be able to. So remember, there are many exercises that you can do today to help you in order to be able to use that head to learn to recall things and improve your memory. So go forth and do so.